so now we'll move on to the vessel Corsair, which had an interesting start.
It did indeed, yes.
And ended up used for a different purpose once it arrived here in Victoria, Australia.
Did. The Corsair was a sailing vessel, and it was just under 6 metres long. It once, before it came to Australia, participated in a race, and here you'll be able to refresh me on the race that it won.
It was the race between Cowes and Eddystone in England and won a 100 guinea prize.
Yes.
Well, quite a significant amount of money. And then it was brought out to Australia on a journey with some cargo, but the Captain Croft had a plan that once he got here he would be able to off-sell the vessel.
Yes.
And make a new life for himself.
And the cargo that it brought with it, and remember that it came all the way from England, this 6 metre long vessel. The cargo was guns, pistols, cutlery, paint and oats, which is
quite a mix.
Quite a mix. So when the Corsair arrived in Australia, it was recommended to the Port Phillip pilots as being suitable for a cruising pilot vessel, and it was bought by the Victorian government and later sold to the Port Phillip Sea Pilots, the very same pilot company which provides our pilot services today. And that was for £925, which at the time was quite a lot of money. So one of the remarkable things that the pilot vessel Corsair did was to locate the rock, which we nowadays know as Corsair Rock, out to the west of Point Nepean. And Corsair Rock has been responsible for quite a number of wrecks. It is a pillar of rock that rises from the seabed, and it is never out of the water. Even at low tide, you get a couple of metres of water over Corsair Rock. One of the most famous recent wrecks that happened there was quite a long time ago, but 1949, when the steamship Time was wrecked there. But to go back to the Corsair itself, the Corsair came here and worked as a pilot vessel, a cruising pilot vessel, which meant that it was outside Port Phillip Heads, or it would go outside with a number of pilots aboard and put pilots onto ships that were coming in. And it was wrecked in 1874. The Corsair was going out through the heads in a very strong southwesterly and a flood tide, meaning the tide was coming in and the southwesterly was blowing. And they were going out to take up what they called their station, some distance outside the heads, in order to be there to put pilots on ships coming in. And it's in the information we have, it says a number of recent strong southwesterly gales had brought many overdue ships to the heads, and there was a shortage of pilots. The Corsair had taken on 5 pilots at midnight on the 23rd of May. And when they were going out, they went close to Point Nepean in order to get out of the full force of the tide coming in through the centre of the heads. And as they were changing direction or tacking to go out through the heads, the vessel failed to respond. And so that's what's called missing stays. So the vessel missed stays, and then before it had time to try again, it was swept onto the reef out there with a very strong surf breaking over it. Now, it carried 2 smaller boats. The 3 pilots and 1 seaman got off in one of them and disappeared into the dark. The rest of the pilots, the remaining 3 pilots and 9 crew, managed to get clear of the surf zone and land at Queenscliff. The Queenscliff at that time had lifeboats. Now, not lifeboats as we know, the one in the Queenscliff Maritime Museum with a motor. These were lifeboats which had to be rowed. So the lifeboat from Queenscliff rowed over to Point Nepean, and that's quite a long way, and next morning found the crew who'd gone off in the first boat safe on the beach. The 3 pilots and 9 crew who had left the Corsair, of course, they landed at Queenscliff, which meant that they rowed all the way to Queenscliff before they were safe. And so the sorry about that noise. The Corsair became full of water, became a total wreck, and it says here further down that most of the rigging and gear was salvaged, and it was insured fully. When it was in 1906, when they found the remains of the Corsair, they were able to salvage a great deal more.
And it's interesting, a lot of people think that the Corsair Rock is named because the Corsair
was wrecked there, but not correctly because it discovered that rock.
And it was actually crashed at Point Nepean, between dry rock and the shore.
Yes. So, and we've had an interesting incident just a few years ago when a shipping trawler was coming in through the heads and came in presumably the same place and sank. And the men aboard may well have been drowned if the pilot launch had not been going past at the time and picked them up to come in, because the tidal flow, in the case of the Corsair, the tide was flooding, but in the case of the other vessel, the tide was ebbing, and because the current flows at such a rate, it's virtually impossible to swim against it.